Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today I'm doing a trade recap. This one's going to be a little bit different. We're also going to use bar replay. I'm going to show you how I take this trade live, and I'm going to give you my explanation on breakdown on this. Now this trade's a little unique. It's not something crazy, but it's Asian session. So I get a lot of questions about how I trade Asian session. So I've been doing my best to kind of make more videos on that topic, or to give a little bit more details on how I trade Asian session. It's something that I only do once or twice a week. Usually I will trade Asian session when I do not want to stay up late to trade London. So I live in California, which means that if I'm trading London session, that's going to be around 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. For me to trade Asian session, I have it figured out to a system to where I only trade it from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. And 90% of the time, I will exit all my positions at 8 p.m. no matter what happens. That's usually where I take profit. Now, my expectations for Asian session is I understand that and volume and momentum are weaker during Asian session. So usually what you see is a continuation on the lower time frame of the current 15-minute order flow. So if you see that 15-minute has shifted bearish, then what you'll usually see is that Asian session will usually continue order flow on the lower time frame and create lower time frame ranges to support the 15-minute order flow. Now, it also depends on where you are in pricing, right? If we've just come out of a 4-hour or 15-minute, whatever. So I'm going to do my best to give you the explanation. Now, this trade was 11R, and I took profit at 11R because I usually close my Asian session trades around that time. Sometimes I will trade Asian session with a hard TP, and that's only because price is usually not very strong in the momentum that drives during Asian session. If it creates a continuation during London of the Asian session, then it works great. In this case, this was an 11R trade that I closed that ran over 60R. So this is going to be a really good example, and I think you have some cool things to learn in this one. So let's get into it. The first thing I wanted to show you was this is my pre-session markups. You can see this is June 30th. I show all my markups and outlooks for each session. In this case, this was the Asian session. Last week, I only actively traded Thursday Asian session. So this was the only day that I took a trade. So I have a 100% win rate on this week. I only took one trade. I took 11R for the whole week because I really didn't trade. I was watching the chart 2 days, but I only traded one of them, which was this day. So these are my markups. This is kind of what I was looking at. You can see that my 5-minute, my bias that I sent for Asian session was shorts into this area, right? At the same time, you can see my entry with timestamp on TradingView. This was the actual entry that I took live. And then this was the first update that I sent, followed by my TP target 1 hit. And that's why I ended up closing. Overall, I was looking for 14R and lower, but at 8 p.m. is when I closed my trades. And this was 12 minutes after that, it looks like. So let's get into the actual markups. Alright, so first things first, to understand, I don't need to get into everything that's happening on the left side. During Asian session, this is where price currently was. So we're trading between two areas here. We have a supply up here, and then we have this most recent demand down here, right? And so overall, we understand that price on this time frame, where we currently are, is we're in between two 4-hour points of interest. We have a buy to sell engulfing that broke to the downside, right? Push price into the daily extreme, and that daily extreme then generated a bullish reaction, a sell to buy that engulfs and leaves behind a big imbalance, right? So at the current moment, we know that we're pretty much at the EQ of both of these zones. Now, I could go ahead and take this high to this low, and I could say, okay, at the current moment, this high failed to break the very extreme low. So if bulls are in control, this supply is weak and this should get taken, right? At the same time, I could say that this broke to the downside. It took multiple took a lot of liquidity, took all these lows, right? And this was pretty weak of a reaction. I can say that while daily and 4-hour structure was bullish, let's say on order flow in this case, in order for it to break, we'd have to see this go, right? So at that current moment, we're here. Now this swing, I can see that the 4-hour order flow was bearish, right? And so at the same time, I could argue and say, well, if we are in this area above premium, then ideally I want to take shorts from this area. Now, most ideally, I would like to see shorts happen from this 4-hour. Now, I could argue and say that this is the 4-hour pivot, buy to sell, right? So I could make that argument. At the same time, you know, if I'm going to buy it, it would have to be from down here. So I wouldn't buy from current price action, as well as we know that we recently left this imbalance behind. So what I do in this case, especially during Asian session, is I head to the 15-minute and I want to keep in mind what the current 15-minute structure and order flow is. So at this current moment, what we do know is that we had, let's say we made this low, we pulled back, made this wick high, right? That was still what, a lower high, and then we made this swing to the downside. So I could say, for example, here we did create a break to the upside. So this is a range sell to buy. This was the 4-hour sell to buy range that was engulfing to the upside. So in this case, if price was going to pull back for buys, I would like to find something that's refined in that 4-hour zone. So in the 4-hour zone, I'm looking for a 15-minute. This one immediately is the first one I can find. We have this imbalance left behind, right? This is a sell to buy engulfing that breaks structure to the upside, takes that 15-minute high, and then what? Creates this push up here that defines the 4-hour. So this is a pretty strong zone. At the same time, I can also say that right now, this POI has no inducement of liquidity. So at the same time, if this POI is going to hold, then what I need to see is liquidity generated upon approach. So I would need to see a bullish change of character to the upside that then fails, creating structural inducement that gets liquidated before we continue higher. At the same time, I could also say, you know, while pricing in this 4-hour, I'd probably want to maybe see something a little bit lower. The extreme is always valid, and this place also, the extreme does also not have inducement as well. So same story. If price was going to come to the extreme, I would likely want to see a trap for early buyers, right, that get liquidated, and then that will serve as inducement of liquidity. So at the current moment, I do know that the 4-hour order flow gave us a very strong outlook that, you know, price could go long, but you know, this bearish swing to the downside, you can see this is a much larger swing to the downside. We are in that premium territory. So this was the exact moment that I basically posted my markups. This is just about before I enter my Asian session. So Asian session for me, I usually wait about 1 hour after Asian session open. And the reason why is because the spread is usually really bad. This day in particular, my spread was about 0.5 pips. And so I used a 1.5 pip stop loss for my entry. I would have much rather have had a 1 pip stop loss, but it's not always doable during Asian session based on my spread. So let's get into this. So here we are on the 15-minute time frame. Now, in order to see what order flow is currently, I can look at current price action. So I know that we made this wick low. And so I want to look to the left if this is something that changed structure or changed character on the relative time frame. So on this current moment, one thing I can see about this leg is this is all one very smooth swing to the upside. In fact, it looks like none of these wicks sweep the wick prior. So all of these wicks, the next one that follows, is higher than the previous one. And so that shows me that we don't really have a clear defined 15-minute pullback on any of these. So what I can immediately look for is, okay, well, where is there a sell to buy engulfing that makes a high? Well, I can see this looks like a thicker doji candle. It's not a sell to buy that is engulfing. I'm not looking at this. In fact, what I see here is we have some sort of consolidation happening here. So this is a weakness of buyers showing, right, that then created this wick. So if I look to the left, what I do see is here we have a sell to buy engulfing, very strong, and this is what I decided to mark as my 15-minute structural pullback. And what I would want to do is I want to verify this on a lower time frame. So when the 15 minutes not clear, it doesn't mean that I won't trade. It just means that I'm going to have to be creative and use different time frames. So that means that I'm going to drop to the 5-minute, because for me, 15-minute structure is 5-minute order flow. So what I do here is I go to the 5-minute, and I want to see if I can catch a 5-minute change of character. So I'm going to go ahead and use this. I'm going to use a slightly thinner version of the same colored line. So what I have here is a sell to buy that makes this high. We pull back, we make a new high. After that, because all this is already printed, I can see we failed to make a new high. So what I notice here is that this was the last high, and technically this should be protected. So if this goes, that's going to be my first 5-minute change of character. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to take a 5-minute change of character after we've developed a very strong sell to buy 4-hour leg. A 5-minute change of character would be kind of silly, right? But at the same time, what I'm trying to understand is what are we likely to do at the current moment during Asian session. Asian session usually is not going to be very aggressive. It's going to be very slow moving. Oops, let's go back here. Asian session is going to be very slow moving in most cases, and so in this case I just want to know what the current order flow is, because I can expect continuation of that. So this is the first 5-minute change of character, and so what I can see here is 5-minute order flow shifts bearish. I can see that we have this trend line liquidity that's forming here, right, which shows me that there's selling pressure pushing for lower pricing. And I do see that we break to the downside. So at this current moment on the 5-minute, we have one 5-minute structural strong point taken. Then I could argue and say this is the other 5-minute structural strong point taken. So as I always say, when we take one structural point, it's a change of character. But when we take two, it's a shift. So at this moment, the 5-minute has officially shifted bearish, right? So that gives me the idea that, okay, if the 5-minute has shifted bearish, is the 15. This is the area that I considered for the 15. Now it's very clear to me that it's a 5-minute structural pullback, but on the 5-minute it's not very clean. The other thing is I can see this wick basically close with a very small body, which tells me there's a very strong buyers entering the market on this 15-minute wick. As you can see that they're stacking so many orders that we left behind a wick. I mean, it's not that big, right? But it's almost 7 pips. And the body of this is only about, it's not even 1 pip, it's half a pip. So what that tells me is that there's a lot of buyers pushing the market higher. And so what I have to pay attention to is, okay, as long as this high doesn't go, because at the current moment that's supposed to be protected. So we already know 15-minute changes character, and 5-minute has shifted bearish. So this is the highest point. In my mind, this is supposed to be protected. That should not be violated. If that gets violated, this was a sweep, and then what we can expect is probably order flow to shift bullish and then continue to that supply, right? So at this current moment, this is what I'm looking at. Now, 5-minute, understanding this is a buy to sell that makes that low. So for me, a change of character on the 5-minute will also be this. So this would be the 5-minute change of character that I'm watching, right? Now, at the same time, if this push to the upside fails to take this high, then I'm immediately expecting at the minimum that this is the first target of liquidity. We have to take this, and then I would like to see order flow continue bearish until, you know, either this hits or until my 8 p.m. mark basically is taken, right? So until my Asian session trading is over. So that's kind of what I'm looking for at this point. Now, at this current moment, what I can see is this. I have this sell to buy. This is the demand zone. And what I basically see here is that this sell to buy pushed to change character on the 5-minute. So in my mind, this is the swing that's occurring that makes this high. We get a pullback. Then price is very wicky here. I don't know exactly what's happening. Maybe some news is happening. This does is it takes the liquidity, but this is technically still the extreme on the 5-minute. So this is the 5-minute supply. This is considered strong as it broke to the downside. At the moment, we also have this demand, which caused a change of character but is not considered strong. In order for that to be considered strong, this has to break something. So if this broke that high, then it's strong and it should be respected. But because it's not yet, then what my expectation is, because the supply is strong, this should overpower this, right? So keep that in mind. So at the current moment, order flow is, or structure on the 15-minute shows some bearish intentions. 15-minute order flow is bearish. Right now it looks like we're in a pullback of this strong leg. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the 1-minute time frame. Now I have my indicator on for Asian session. The chart will turn yellow when it gets into my 4 p.m. time. So at this current moment, I'm not even trading yet. I'm just watching price action, right? Now here on the 1-minute time frame, what I do see is that we do have this big swing to the downside, right? And this ends up invalidating this demand zone. Now I could refine this to something like this on the 1-minute time frame. We end up taking these lows. So once again, what that tells me is, okay, well, we have this extreme that's considered weak already. We've already shifted the 1-minute bearish, and 1-minute structure is bearish. So at this current moment, what am I looking for? I'm looking for continuation to the downside. So I'm still waiting. At my 4 p.m. hasn't hit yet. So I'm going to wait till the first candle turns yellow. So I'm just watching price action at this current moment. All right, now it's 4 p.m. Asian session for me to start trading. So what am I looking for? At this current moment, I'm looking at what's the next move. So what caused this break? So I'm looking for any bullish candles that caused a buy to sell engulfing. So I can see this was one bearish swing to the downside that directly broke this demand. I can see that directly this was the supply that caused that break. So at the current moment, this was that reaction. So what am I thinking? This was a buy to sell engulfing that broke to the downside. I don't think price needs to come higher, but if it does, I don't see a reason to, because okay, this took liquidity and then continued to the downside, but then we paused here, have this candle here that's giving another reaction to the left, and then we get engulfed, right? Then we pause 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes, and then we get the swing to the downside. So to me, this is where we have commitment entering the market. So this is the main focus for me. Now at this current moment, because I'm looking at this, now what I'm thinking is, okay, at this moment for 1-minute order flow, because the 1-minute structure is bearish as we broke to the downside. So in my mind, what I can see here is that this high, I'm going to make it thick here, for a 1-minute change of character bullish, this 1 minute has to go, because this is a buy to sell that made a low. This has to get taken for order flow to go bullish. So in my mind, if this goes bullish, then I'm going to look for higher pricing to take shorts, or I'm going to look for longs to take price higher, right? So I'm still waiting for something. Now, my expectation is if this supply is strong, then this needs to go. This will be the first target. Now, because, let's mark this properly, because this is a sell to buy that made an internal high and this swing, this is complex pullback. If this goes, then what I can look for is something here to take shorts, because then I have confirmation the order flow is a shifted bearish as well as 1-minute structure. So what am I going to look for? At this current moment, I'm going to drop to the seconds time frame, and I know a lot of people probably wouldn't want to do that, but because I'm refining this area and I'm very strongly considering taking shorts here, that's kind of what I'm looking for, right? Now at the same time, I have an understanding that, well, we do have some areas where price could give us reactions to go long from, so I'm just going to keep an eye on these areas just to see what happens, right? Here we have sell to buy, and if price gives a reaction here, I just want to know what's happening, right? So on the 15-minute, on the 15-second, I do see that we give a 15-second change of character here, right? So sell to buy that makes this high, respects that, price comes into here, and then changes character. So at the same time, I now have a new supply that I could be looking for, right? So this is something that I could be looking for. Now I could refine it and say, okay, well, I want this to be the liquidity. I'm just going to wait for that to get swept, potentially, right? This is all part of that potential chain. So I just want to see what's happening. I want to see that low go. All right, price comes into that area. Now here's the thing. At this moment, what am I seeing on the 15-second? this is the current structure on the 15-second. So why I would not take shorts, because right now at this current moment, structure and order flow on this time frame is still making new highs, as we just made this high. Even though 1 minute structure is bearish, the order flow on the structure of the 1 minute, which is 15 seconds right now, is making new highs. So I will expect this unless this gets taken, and then I can take shorts. So let's see what happens. At this current moment, I'm not in shorts. I'm just waiting to see. Either the high or the low has to go. All right, so we're going to expand this. This would be a 1 minute change of character. So we're going to keep waiting. All right, so at this current moment, what am I seeing now? Okay, now what I'm seeing here is it looks like we're forming inducement of liquidity. So I already see that we are creating some trend line liquidity. This looks like a supply chain that looks pretty weak in my mind. So now what I'm looking for is at this current moment, I can see that this sell to buy that makes this internal high of this swing is taken. Okay, so that gets taken. I'm going to put this as a change of character on the lower time frame. All right, so now at this current moment, what am I thinking? Okay, this could now all be used as structural inducement. So at this moment, if this area gets tapped, I'm willing to be aggressive and take shorts, because now that we've taken this low, even if we haven't taken this one low, at this moment this has become structural inducement. As this pulled back, made internal high, pushed to the downside, this should now be considered strong, but it's all trendline liquidity. So if it gets tapped, I'm gonna hit an entry. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. All right, so here we are. Let's see what happens. Price is approaching. All right, no tap yet. Okay. All right, we're gonna keep waiting. Okay, so at this current moment, what do we see? Now we have another point of inducement of liquidity for that extreme, right? And so what am I gonna look for now? Okay, well, I wanna see if this gets taken. At the same time, okay, now that gets taken, so now I have these lows are gone, right? At the same time, I don't want to take shorts from this area, considering that we have equal highs here that we could sweep. So this swept all of this first, but now we have these equal highs as well, right? So I'm still watching to see what's going to happen, and if this goes, then this would be a much higher probability trade at the current moment. So we're going to keep waiting to see what happens. It's hard to remember the seconds time frame, so we're still playing this by ear here. Okay. All right. So we've come into this demand. At the current moment, we have inducement for this POI as well. So let's see. We have a change of character to the upside here on the 15-second time frame. It looks like we made equal highs with the extreme, so maybe not so much, but change of character on the lower time frame on the seconds. So this is developing inducement of liquidity for that extreme. Now order flow is still on this time frame. You can see the 15-second structure is bullish. This is the point that has to go for us to go bearish. So if this area could still provide a reaction. So we're going to keep waiting and seeing what happens. I want to see that low go ideally, but if it doesn't, okay, there we go. All right, so now what do we have? Now we can say, and this is the same thing with supply chains, right? Now we can consider this strong, as this high broke structure to the downside. Now at the same time, it did so in a very weak manner, but basically what we're saying is that buyers are exhausted in this market. This structural point, which basically this is how we can view this, took this low, right? So this is considered strong. We have all this inducement of liquidity for the extreme that has yet to be tapped. If price comes in and taps that, we can take shorts. So we can be pretty aggressive at this moment. So this is now what I'm looking for. So now we have this liquidity, right? And then we have this. So I'm going to be watching. I want to see price come back to that extreme. All right, stop. And so at that current moment, we've tapped, and I'm willing to hit enter. And the reason why I'm willing to hit enter here is I'm going to use a 1.5 pip stop loss. Now, I could use a 1 pip stop loss on this trade, which would still cover, and that potentially could still work. The problem is that I have spread, and my spread is about half a pip or so. It's shifting between 0.3 to half a pip. So I'd be comfortable taking this trade. And so what we can see here is we tapped. Now this would be the whole range, now which we've already gotten a couple taps of, but if we covered those highs and just focus on using that as inducement of liquidity, this would be valid. Now, this was the entry that I took. It looks the same, so here's what we can see here, right? Same thing, extreme, right? And so now that we have this, I can look for, okay, my confirmation for this trade is I want to see the 15-minute or 15-second change character as well. So here, this would be the first sign of the 15S. This is a pullback that made that wick high. So this one would be the first confirmation. As well as I could wait for some of these here. This one would be the most ideal, right, of that shift. So at this current moment, this is my setup. We're going to see if this holds. We already know it holds because, it's a trade recap. But all right, so 15-second changed bearish. Now, we've swept these equal highs, right? The extreme is still here. We've barely tapped it, but we're still good. So at that moment, I'm expecting price to go bearish. Now, sometimes price will do this and mess around, especially during Asian session. It likes to wick people out. So how am I going to manage this trade? All right, so let's hide that. And then what we'll do is we are going to focus on that lower time frame. All right. So what I want to see here is this area, as long as this wick or the wick doesn't break this 1 minute, 1 minute structure is still bearish. So I'm really not expecting this to go, and that's why covering this for me is the safe bet, because if this goes, then what I've basically seen is that this strong point, this low to this high, pulls back. This really shouldn't go. Now it could be swept, and it looks like we did sweep it, but as long as the 1 minute extreme doesn't get taken, I'm okay, right? And so it looks like we tapped that, but we're fine. So what I want to just catch and wait for is that alignment of the 15-second bearish again. So I know that this low made this high, internal pulled back, made that high. If this goes 15-second change of character, you can even look for a secondary entry if it's going to hold, right? All right, 15-second change of character. It looks like that's good. Okay, perfect. So what do we have now? We've taken this true pullback. This is in well-priced territory. So this was a swing to the upside. So once we've taken this, we have confirmation that this is going to hold much stronger. We see that this is the supply. The price came back to retap, and now we've left behind this extreme here. Unlikely to tap that, but we'll see what happens. All right. So what am I looking for? I'm pulling back out, and I can see this. So now we're not out of this completely yet, because we can still have price come in and tap this. So what I want to see, because from this high to this low to this pullback, right? If this is going to continue and order flow is going to shift bearish to align with the 5-minute and the 15-minute, then I need to see this go. So this would be the area where if you wanted to set your trade to break even, this would be a valid place to do so. So we're going to wait for that to go. All right, that's the drop. So you can go ahead and set this to break even. I'm going to tell you how I did this. Instead of setting to break even, I will simply just cover the current high. So in this case, because this could come back to get mitigated, I just moved my stop loss to, I think, 1 pip. So I cut about half a pip off of this trade. So that's basically what I have. So let's go back to see what the entry looks like. So this was the entry, and this was the actual 1 minute break of structure. So now 1 minute has shifted bearish. So let's take a look at this. We're going to actually shift now to the 1 minute time frame to understand what the next move for this trade can be. All right. So here we are. We can take a zoom out. So this is the next target. So now that we know that the 15-minute has changed character and 5-minute has shifted bearish, this would be the next expected target for price to come down to take. So at this current moment, now what we'll do is, because I took the trade with an entry of 1.5 pips, I'm going to leave that just for the sake of measuring the risk to reward properly. I can go ahead here and say that the first ideal target now would be 7R. Now, I will not take a trade unless I can see that it has a 10R potential, right? And so obviously at the same time, and I can show you, let me pause it and find it really quickly. Okay, so I take screenshots of all my trades as I enter them with my thought process on them. So this was the final result. This was my actual target. So when I entered this trade, you can see the timestamp, June 30th, 17:15, 17:15. This was my actual target. So my first target ideally was going to be this one. At the same time, because price was moving very slowly, I was willing to take profit earlier, but overall that's my target. So we're going to go ahead and stick with that for this video. So we can see if we scroll down to the downside here, this would be the first 15-minute target. So the idea expectation of this trade would be 30R, right? That's my thought process. Now, on the 1-minute time frame, looking at this setup here, I could look to the left and think, where are the catalysts for pullback? Now, looking down here, we have all these areas where we could potentially generate a reaction. Now, because this demand failed to make a new high, it's considered weak. So I'm not expecting anything more than a reaction, so I'm going to paint it green. At the same time, I want to be aware of any areas that could potentially provide reactions as well, that could potentially flip my trade. So I'm basically looking for the extremes where all the injection of liquidity entered, as those are areas that potentially could be vulnerable to flipping price, especially during Asian session, right? Because we could shift temporarily bearish, because what do we have to be aware of? If we look to the supply above, 4 hours still bullish. So we're basically trading, and I mean, it sounds a little bit crazy, but 15-minute change of character, 5-minute shift in order flow. We took a 1-minute POI that directly broke 5-minute structure that was where? Not even, was it an even well price? I mean, this was a swing. So we took a trade that was still in from, I guess, premium territory that pushed price just to take out this level. And we took a 15-second extreme of a strong 1-minute leg that has not even tested the 15-minute extreme yet. So we weren't really in an official pullback. So we were still in that continuation. So in any moment, price could have come down here, taken all that liquidity, come to this extreme, and then gone short. So this was one of those trades that was a little bit like more risky, right? It wasn't necessarily the cleanest. So what I'm looking for now is going back to how I manage this trade. What I want to keep in mind is all the points of interest that could potentially be 1-minute re-entries. Now, of course, I managed this trade on the 15-second time frame. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how I did that, right? So all I'm looking for is every time that we develop 1-minute POIs, and I'm trying to see if I can potentially spot zones of re-entry. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to keep playing price. All right, price comes back into here. Now at this moment, this could have been a valid entry. We did shift the 1 minute. We did break 1-minute structure to the downside. So this could have worked at the same time. I still want to see a little bit further action on this. I want to see this 5-minute, 15-minute new logo, right? So that's the ideal place we're looking for. So every couple minutes, what I'm doing is I'm jumping back to the 1-minute time frame to see if we've created a new POI. All right, so the mitigation here left behind this 1 minute. So now I have this new area where I could potentially look for another re-entry, because here, if we are developing a supply chain, this one broke to the downside, pulled back, made this leg, broke to the downside. Now, if this gets tapped, I would be willing to take a re-entry. Now, I didn't take any re-entries. I usually don't scale into trades during Asian session, but it's just something to be aware of. So let's keep watching price. All right, so we're coming into this area. This is a weak demand where we are expecting a reaction. It's a catalyst for a pullback. I just don't want to see it take anything that's considered strong. All right, so this is generating the pullback. So at this current moment, what am I watching for? I'm looking to see for this reaction to go and create a break of structure. Now, if I pull back here, I can say, okay, well, we had the first break of structure here, right, on the 1 minute. I could go ahead and say that this ended up creating a break of structure to the downside as well. But I wanted to see a better pullback, something more corrective versus something like this, right? So we're just going to watch to see if this goes. Okay, break. All right, so this now becomes a break of structure. All right, so structure is broken. We've taken the first reaction to here. This first reaction, while shifted order flow bullish temporarily, it failed to take anything strong. This would basically be the closest strong point. This is one swing to the downside. This was the pullback. So we broke to the downside. Now this is considered strong as it broke structure, but at the same time, it could also be considered inducement for the POI above if price needs to come higher. So let's keep bar replaying. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn off the Asian session color in the background because that's kind of distracting. So that way we can focus on this price action. All right, so what I'm basically looking for is on the 15-second, I'm watching the ranges. So here on the 15-second, we've already broken this low, so I can go ahead and jump to the 15-minute time frame. Okay. So on this 15-minute, now what do I see is that we've directly broken this. Now, it has not yet been confirmed with a candle body. So at this moment, what I'm expecting is, I don't think this is going to be a sweep because now I have what? This is what the 15-minute looks like. We've taken one change of character, and this is now the break of structure. Now here's the thing, if we look at this leg, price could still come up, mitigate this wick here. This is the buy to sell wicks that we're engulfing, right? Take out all of my levels and then drop to the downside. So once again, a little bit of a high risk entry, knowing that this area is still on top. And I do have this marked up on my charts. It is 15-minute buy to sell wicks, 5-minute sweep, right? And it is above my POI. I did enter off a 1 minute. You can barely even see it here. This is where I took my entry from, right? So kind of crazy if you think about it, knowing that this area is still above. So we're not completely sure on it yet, but we have our trade set to either break even or we've covered the current high. Now 5-minute break of structure here. So now what I can look for is I'm thinking, okay, maybe price will come to revisit this. This is going to be the 5-minute. And this is just how I'm managing my trade, same kind of thought process. I'm bouncing back between time frames. And this was a 1 minute, right? And that would be part of a supply chain. So I can go ahead and actually put SC just to keep myself reminded of where that is. And I can now say that, okay, I don't need this well-priced thing tool anymore. I'm going to change this to break of structure on the 15-minute. We've taken the next one. So let's go back to the 1 minute. This is the next level where we could consider a reaction from. Now, if I look to the left, the actual 15-minute break that happened was here. So technically, this was a pullback. I'm not expecting a strong reaction. I'm expecting the best reaction or the biggest one to likely happen to this zone here, right? That's what I'm basically expecting because that's the one that directly broke that 15-minute and changed it bullish. So overall here, we're waiting for this. Now, this POI doesn't have any inducement of liquidity, so no inducement. If it's part of the range, it should hold, but at the same time, I know that this is the swing to the downside. Now that this demand broke, that reaction, I can now focus on the one below and the ones above. This is a swing. This could be inducement for that POI, and then at the same time, we have, you know, this could potentially also hold. So we're just going to keep playing price. Let's go to the 15-second because that's kind of where I'm watching order flow from, right? All right, so now I'm getting a sizable pullback. So what I want to look for is I want to see, let's do this properly here. Now I'm focusing on this lowest point because this is the extreme that caused that pullback. So now what I want to see is if I'm going to get another break of structure, this is the point that has to go. Now, at this current moment, what do I not see? I'm not getting a 15-second change of character in here. I also know there's no inducement, so I'm not expecting it to hold very well. But we're watching. Okay. Oh. Now, in order for this to be a 15-second change of character, I'm always keeping in mind in that swing, where would I need to see that from? all of these candles are bullish, right? So this is where I have the only sell candle. This would have to go for a 15-second change of character, right? Now if I jump to the 1 minute, you know, it would have to be even lower. It would basically have to break that 1 minute structure. So we're just going to keep watching. An internal change of character is not something I'm interested in. I want to see it external for higher probability. All right, so what do we see now? All right, so now I see that we've made a new high. So a new 15-second change of character. Instead of seeing this one, I would now have to see this go on the 15-second. So this one goes 15-second. Now we know that this 5 minute did not hold. So what am I expecting? Maybe price will come into here. Now the same way I see this is it swept liquidity into the POI, broke structure to the downside, has some inducement here, has structural inducement here. So I could potentially load up to another entry there if I see my entry model presented. All right, 15-second changed character, but then it went back to make a new high. So now I'm focusing on this one. We're not in the POI yet. Okay, POI tapped. All right, you could have taken a 5-second entry here. Now that we saw this 15-second change of character, you could also potentially focus on this new leg. We wait for it to pull back, and you could take a 5-second entry in premium pricing, right? Maybe there was a 5-second there. In this case, like I said, I did not scale in, so I'm just showing you that what's possible. All right, so now what do we have? We mitigated this area. Now what do we have? This one has been mitigated. This one has been mitigated. Let's take a look at the 1 minute and see if we left behind a new POI. All right, so at the current moment, we have the extreme. The extreme, this buy candle is very strongly engulfing to the upside, and the sell reaction did not do that. It did change character, so it is valid extreme, but here we have a buy to sell engulfing, and this area could potentially be valid. Now, it also does not have any inducement, so I'm just aware of that. Can I drag that? I can't. So let's add a new one here. So we have no inducement. So I'm just keeping that in mind. Now, because this is the extreme of the pullback, right? Right now, what we have now is a 1 minute change of character. So the 1 minute has shifted bullish on order flow, but structure is still bearish. So here's what we're looking for. In this case, price could reverse, and this could be considered strong and take out that level. Now, because I understand that this was one big swing, pullback, this area didn't really take any liquidity here, broke structure to downside. I see this as structural inducement. Because this reaction caused a change of character, I need to see this low go, or else I'm going to consider that likely price is going to reverse on me and take me out. So I want to be aware of that. So I'm going to go back to the 15-second, and I want to see that low go before anything else happens. Okay. I'm going to keep in mind when 15-second structure shifts bullish, what made that new low. The current low, the buy to sell, makes this low. We have these wicks. I want to make sure that that holds, ideally. All right, takes it. What are we in? We've come into this 1 minute POI. 15-second order flow is bullish, so now I'm a little bit concerned, because now I see that, okay, this area here is changed character on the 1 minute. Structure is still bearish. 15-minute and 5-minute structure and order flow is bearish, but on the lower time frames, this is where we're at. So I kind of don't want to see this get taken. At the same time, it doesn't have any inducement of liquidity, so price could come into it, but there is that chance that we could come in to respect that extreme. So let's see what happens. All right, nothing. I'll just keep this whole thing here. I don't remember where I had it set, but let's see. Okay, all right, did come to that extreme. Now the other thing that I can see about this extreme, it is a V-shaped recovery that swept liquidity. So in my mind, I am understanding that that V-shaped recovery is kind of strong. Now it has failed to take that low yet. So at this current moment, I'm still waiting for this to go. So here we are, we're gonna keep watching. I don't want to see that area go. All right, what do I see now? 15-second order flow has shifted. All right. So here's sell to buy that makes this high. It's internal to this swing, complex pullback. But in this swing here, 15-second, anything here is internal to this 15-second swing here. We've taken that low. So I don't want to see this area go. I want to see it stay respected. Right, so let's keep watching. All right, giving me confidence. Perfect. Finally, we have that break of structure. So now what do I have? I have break of structure one here. I have another one here. I have another one here. All right, so now that I have, this is the extreme of the pullback. This is considered the strong point, the extreme for this part in the pullback that broke structure. So I'm going to go back to the 1 minute, and I want to see if there's any POIs that I could be looking for. Okay, so on the 1 minute time frame, this is where I see commitment entering the market. So I now have this new buy to sell on the 1 minute that if price comes into, I would consider taking scale ins. Now, like I said, I don't scale into Asia's session, but this is the same thought process that you should have. Now on the 1 minute time frame, I don't really like this area too much to sweep. This area could act as inducement for that POI. This one also doesn't have inducement directly. So let's mark this here. No inducement, right? And then this one could potentially use this as inducement of liquidity. So we're just keeping that in mind. All right, so now that we're in this area, I'm going to go to look to the left. And I'm just going to keep more focus on what's the next zone, right? So this would be the next area that I could be looking for price to come into. And I believe that that might be where I hit my take profit and close my trades. I don't remember. I think, where did I hit it? Let me go back to see where I took my profit. It would be 4629. 4629. Oh, it's still lower. All right, so we still haven't gone to that zone yet. Okay, so let's keep watching. So back to the 15-second. Now that we have 1 minute zones to where we potentially could scale in, I want to watch where the 15-second pulls back from. Well, okay, that was really aggressive, so I don't like to see that. Okay, so that automatically already is giving me that we have a very strong reaction to this 1 minute. Now I can look to the left. Let's go to the 1 minute time frame and see what that was that we reacted to. Okay, so in my mind, this happened after that 15-minute change of character, or that 15-minute break of structure. So I'm not expecting this to hold because this is outside of that range that broke. This is the actual POI that caused that break. So I'm not really expecting this to hold, but at the same time, I do understand that we could have a pullback into well-priced territory. So if we have this high to this low where we currently are, price could pull back there, somewhere up here, and that's pretty high up of a pullback. I'm not really liking that. So let's go back to the 15-second. On this moment, what I'm thinking here is that this area now has created a strong sell to buy, and we're gonna watch this. So strong reaction, so that's gonna be darker green. All right, so let's watch what happens here. Oh, I have to plug my computer in. 1 second. All right. On the laptop, I don't always have it plugged in all the time. 1 second. All right, so we have a strong sell to buy. So now what I'm looking for is, okay, in order for the 1 minute to change character on this extreme point here, in order for structure to change character, I would need to see this go, right? Now, that's basically, structure shifts. At the same time, I have an understanding that, in this leg, we made this low, we pulled back, formed this extreme before we broke. So I don't want to see this go either, right? This would be an internal change of character. This would be the external shift in structure on the 1 minute time frame. So I'm just weary of that. Let's take a look what happens. And these are my exact thoughts of when I was trading. All right. So at this current moment, we've now formed inducement of liquidity for this POI. So we could, if we were, let's say if we were wanting to hedge, because we are how many pips away from our entry? From our entry, we are only 8 pips into profit. So if you really wanted to, you could potentially hedge something like this if it was going to take out all these levels, and that would only take you whatever you risk per trade with a 1.5 pip stop loss or so. Now we don't do that because I already understand the higher time frame, and I would rather keep everything in or everything out, right? So We're going to keep watching. Okay, price taps. I don't want to see this area go. But at the same time, I also know that we just made inducement of liquidity here, right? So what we have here happen is we just shifted, we made a strong low, right? So on the 15-second, this low made a new high on this internal swing, right? This is strong. We just took that strong low, made a strong high, right? But at the same time, we have a supply above. We have two supplies above where we could see price come back to return to. So now we have structural inducement for these POIs. So let's see what happens. All right, price fails to tap. We're still watching. Still watching. All right, supply tapped. All right, so now on this time frame, on the 15 seconds, now that I'm watching that supply tapped, this is the 15-second change of character. So 15-second order flow is bearish. If this goes, then it becomes bullish. So I'm hoping it doesn't become bullish because I really want to see this. All right, now what we have is another change of character that failed. So shifted bearish, right, failed, took the high. Now order flow is bullish. So what I can see here is that the buys are very impulsive at this moment. And so this is giving me caution that this trade potentially could fail, right? And so I do have in mind these POIs. I do see this area here where we could potentially get a reaction to, as that's the extreme. So we're just going to keep watching. All right. And remember that at my trade, I took profit at 11R. So I believe I set my trade after this broke, I think is when I took profit. Let's go close right there. Okay. So what I did is at this moment, what time is it? 19, hour 19 would be what? 8 o'clock would be 20. So I do know that I personally don't like to be in trades past 8 p.m. So I know if price gets to this level, I'm going to consider closing, right? Unless it all breaks. So I think in this case what happened there is once I saw this go, I have a new break of structure. And then that's when I hit my take profit. In that place, I closed early, is what I'm saying. So this was where I hit my take profit. I closed my trade early. I hit 11R, but my original target one was for Asian session was down here. Now we are approximately how many minutes away? Let me take a look at that. Proper tool here. From here to here, it's about less than half hour away from where I stopped trading Asian session at 8 p.m. Then I go to relax. And if I'm going to trade London, then I will come back in a couple hours. Now, this trade in total lasted about 2 hours and 45 minutes. And we took about 11 hours. So that's pretty good. Now, overall, what was my target? If I go back here, I see that my first target one was going to be this level was 45.70. So if we scroll down, 45.70 lines up here because this is the 1 minute POI that directly broke that 15-minute structure to the left. So this was the 15-minute high. This was a sell to buy that broke structure very aggressively. So that would have been the 14R target that I originally wanted. We're going to watch that. And then you can go ahead and see that from my screenshots, overall for my actual trade, this is where I wanted to target. So this was my goal, understanding that very likely price could take me out if it wanted to come to here, but that would be a 30R trade. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you what happens on the 1 minute time frame as we hit this POI. All right, so pretty smooth would be, let's see. All right, here's what we're going to do. We can see here that we're building a corrective buildup of liquidity, right? So this looks like trendline liquidity. If price comes into maybe this area where supply was injected into the market, right? This was a pause where the engulfing happened. Potentially we could take shorts from there in continuation, or just to keep in mind that's where we should go short from. All right, it did not reach. we broke another point of structure to the downside, right? So break of structure. Now we do know that in this swing from this high to this low, that this barely came into premium territory. So there is a chance that this could serve as inducement of liquidity. It is strong, so I'm going to mark it as strong with this little arrow indicating that's what will cause the break. Now at 8 p.m. I wouldn't really want to be in trades anymore, so I would have been done by then. So I would have closed anyway, but let's keep watching here. So we're waiting for that 14-hour target. All right, and 14-hour target hit, so that's done, right? So at that point, this trade would have hit the 14-hour mark. Now overall, this was the 15-minute point that we were looking for. I'm gonna go ahead, can I delete the 4-hour? Yeah. All right, so we're just gonna watch to see what happens here. Now, we are on the 1 minute. We can go ahead and look for any POIs if we're gonna return. So when London session comes into play, we can go ahead and see when that happens through the use of this indicator. I think it will only go on the 5-minute and above. So 11 would be 22. So I'm now going to add one of these to 22. That would be Frankfurt open. All right. So back to the 1 minute time frame. All right. So here what we can find is, okay, if price is going to pull back for London session, then what I want to know is from the current swing that we've developed from this high to here, price could come back into premium territory. So if it's going to go short, we could expect any of these levels to come back to get tapped. We could see this. We could see this area above. We could also see this area here. We're just going to go ahead and watch to see what happens as the overall target, the 30-hour target that I initially marked in my screenshot here with the timestamp, as that gets hit. So let's just watch what happens. All right, still watching. Frankfurt open creates a pullback. All right. You could potentially get an entry here, but I didn't trade London session, so I'm not doing anything here. I'm just going to watch the chart play out as I want to see my entry if it holds, which I believe it does. All right, we pull back. All right. All right, so we have 1 minute change of character. You take shorts. And then let's watch our overall target. So if we look at this, for example, price came down to about 30 pips, right? If you had a 2-pip stop loss, which would have been great, that's 15R. If you had a 1.5 pip stop loss, it would have been even, it would have done even better. Now, in this case, for example, ran 30 pips. When London session opened, we pulled back about to 8 pips. So imagine that. So imagine you're up 30 pips, and in Asian session, that's why I like to close my trades, because when London opens, usually we have a pullback. Sometimes that pullback will sweep Asian session. Sometimes it will create a continuation. But in this case, that's why I have that strict rule that I don't like to hold things past 8 p.m. Because there's a chance that usually we'll get a pullback during London session. So you can see that the Asian session bias shorts ruled until about 1 hour prior to Frankfurt. And then after that, we had the pullback during Frankfurt, and London created continuation. So let's overall just watch to see what happens as price goes lower and hits the overall target. All right, was that the total target? All right, so that was the 30R target overall set. So we go back to the 15-minute. All right, so we can see that this was tapped, and after that, price was pretty aggressive on the pushback to the upside. So this was a very safe target, exactly as marked out, right? Clean. And then, of course, you know how crazy price has been lately. So what ends up happening later, when New York happens, we end up taking that low. So this trade, set with a 30R target, ended up running, let's use that previous low because we probably wouldn't have held lower than that. ran about 65R. So pretty crazy. It teaches you to hold your trades. Now, if you wouldn't have gotten your trade entry during Asian session like I did, you would have had an entry during London session, Frankfurt, that then later got swept, right? So then New York would have had another entry, a better entry. But Asian session provided the best entry that day. So it just goes to show you to learn to trade Asian session and keep your mind open to what the current bias is. So in summary of if you're going to be trading how I trade during Asian session, understand that volume and momentum is typically weak, and what you want to follow is the current 15-minute order flow, right? Is 15 minutes shifting bearish? Then you want to trade lower time frame ranges bearish, right? If 15-minute just shifted bullish, then Asian session is probably going to create continuation of that bullish momentum. Now, you have to understand that on the lower time frame, what you're spotting for is exhaustion. Because Asian session doesn't have a lot of volume, what you tend to see is an exhaustion of buyers or sellers that create that indication that reversal is happening. This is just before Asian session. You can see that we are basically distributing orders up here, and we're hesitating to continue this swing to the upside. So this is exhaustion of buyers and a search for sellers. Sellers were not going to be found until at least here, provided the pullback, right? And then, no more buyers, had to make a new low. Broke structure to the downside overall. So, exhaustion of buyers or sellers, current 15-minute order flow, 15-minute shifted bearish with a change of character. I watched 5-minute structure. What else did I do? I also was watching 1-minute POIs. So go back to this area here. I want to specifically look for 1-minute areas that directly cause break or have the highest injection of volume. Because if I was looking from this high to this current low in a pullback, then I would not have actually taken, let's make sure this is correct, I would not have taken shorts off of here. And price never came back into premium, right? So I have to understand that, well, this area made sense. This area is directly the buy to sell that directly broke this low on this internal structure, right? So this area is where the injection of volume and momentum was entered, and it was respected to the T, gave us a 1.5 pip stop loss with spread. So overall, that's what I was looking for. Now, because I'm following lower time frame ranges, I'm constantly shifting from the seconds to the 1 minute to find POIs that price can come back to. Now, I also understand that just because we break structure to the downside doesn't mean that that new structure has to hold. We have to keep in mind that well-priced territory, if it didn't pull back into well-priced territory, then that means that likely that area is going to be inducement for the previous leg, right? So keep that in mind. If it doesn't directly, if it doesn't pull back into well-priced territory, that new leg is going to be structural inducement for the previous. That was exactly what happened here, right? Even if this was a 15-minute buy to sell wicks that got engulfed, got taken, because this pullback did not come into very well priced territory, served as inducement for that 1 minute POI. So keep that in mind. Let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully this video helped, and I will catch you for the next one. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.